Hi, welcome to my studio. My name is Lenny Honkoop and I'm going to show you today how to use hot ribbon and Copic markers to create one of these 10-inch squares, and be using the fuchsia right behind me, which is part of a quilt that has 12 different blocks that you can use for a block of the month. The products that you will need to be able to make that is Steam-A-Seam. Steam-A-Seam is a iron-on product that is dual paper with a sticky in between. The way to find out which side you have to trace on is to take this apart, and the side where the sticky part stays on will stay on the top. So I separate the two pieces. The part what keeps the sticky stuff on it stays on the top. So here's my sticky stuff, and then I'm going to trace the pieces of my pattern that in my designs are already reversed for you, so you don't even have to turn them around. So when I have my pattern, which I have on a light box, which actually really helps, is you put your Steam-A-Seam on top of your pattern and you're going to trace these pieces to your Steam-A-Seam. Now remember, the sticky stuff is on the top and the other paper is on the bottom. Now I have all my pieces marked, and this is a leaf, so I just write down 3L for leaf. And when I have all these pieces traced, then what you need to do is you need to cut these pieces apart. So we will be using, or pretending anyhow, that we have all these traced, but I did these already for you. And then what we do is we're going to pull these apart. So you need a pair of good paper scissors. Take the excess of the Steam-A-Seam off, and then we will attach these pieces, and I will show you how to do that, to your fabric. So you cut them all separate. You don't have to be very precise because that would be double work. So now pretend that we have all these pieces all cut out, and then what we do is we're going to go, and let me remove my light box for a minute. We're going to take the pieces and we're going to attach these to the pieces of fabric that we need. So remember that we had two pieces of fabric, of paper with the sticky stuff in between. We now take or remove the backing. Sticky stuff is staying to the top of my tracing. And we will take a leaf and we lay it right on this fabric. Okay. Now sometimes what happens is, because that depends on your climate where you live, is sometimes this will not stick too well. So what I do is I use my little iron and just kind of reactivate this so it's easier to work with it. So you don't have to fight things that keep coming off. And then we're going to cut these apart. And we're going to use the scissors to cut it out. And people ask me sometimes, well, do I cut inside? Do I have to be very precise? No, you do not. But I do recommend that you try to stay on the outside of your pencil drawing versus on the inside. Because the more you go on the inside, the more it will become really small, and you would get gaps between your design. So now we have all these pieces cut out, and we're going to the next step. So your Steam-A-Seam now has all your pieces on it, and now we're going to use our pattern, which is the full size. Let me get it for a minute, which is our placement guide. And our placement guide we're going to put over our bare thread applique pressing sheet. So basically what we do is we're going to look for the right numbers and the right pieces of fabric that we have cut out. And the easiest way to remove the sticky is by taking a straight pin, go through, make a scratch through there, and just lay this down at the piece where it needs to go. So now we're going to look for number 4 and 3. This one is actually quite loose, so I can do this ahead. And we stick this right underneath here. Okay, so this is the top of our first flower. We're looking for number 4. Where are you? Hiding on. We can do number 2 too. I should score this too. It's easier with these little pieces and that sticky stuff lifts up. And we lay this down right here. This is number 10, so where is number 10? It's right here. Again, we're going to lay this out. So when we have all these pieces together, that is what the beauty of this particular material is what happens is that you take your large iron and then we iron it all to that Teflon sheet. And the beauty of it is that you lift the whole thing and you have the whole image in your hand without having to have any effort of trying to figure out where things go. We're going to do something that a lot of people have never done before. You can actually iron to this without that it will interfere with your be able to remove this, because it will not absorb the adhesiveness. So we're going to take the iron, and it's just a warm hot iron, and we're going to set this right on top of this Teflon. And now these pieces will all stay together. The adhesive part is staying to the fabric because the Teflon will not absorb that. So we're going to take our background, make sure that it's nice and straight and clean, and I'm just buying a little bit of time here because you cannot remove these pieces until they have totally cooled down. If you don't have these cool down, the heat will stretch your fabric, the adhesive, and then it will not go back into place. So you make sure that you have these totally cooled down before you very carefully remove the pieces of your Teflon. You don't want to get it to look distorted. So remember that is important, that you have it cool down, that it is not warm when you remove it. So then we put the Teflon aside and we just lay it on the background of our fabric. Now you can see that this was basically foolproof. A child can do this. There is no effort whatsoever. All the pieces were already figured out for you. All you do is now you lay it down on your background fabric and you iron that to your background. Now all the work is done. Now we're going to play. And you will see how much fun it is, because we will be using the hot ribbon, and for demo purposes we are not going to use the colors, because I am going to show you how you can alter colors to make the colors match better with your fabric. As you can see, this is quite a bit darker than this chosen fabric is. So I am using, and I'm going to demo for you how you attach the ribbon, and from there how we can alter the colors if we have to. So here we go. We're going to start right here at this point. There really is no right or wrong part to start. You just pick a spot. You take your Clover mini iron and you put it at about 2 o'clock. If you put it any hotter, it's like you use silk with a hot iron. What happens is it will ooze as it becomes hard, it becomes ugly. So this little mini iron is basically used to tack it in place, not to keep it permanent. So here we go. I'm going to lay down and I'm going to start, and now I have something to hold on to. I can actually have now the capability of maneuvering it because it's not shifting on me. Now, people ask me many times, how can I go around tight corners? Okay, I will give you, I'm a good person to give you, for example, images that maybe sound silly, but I don't know how else to explain it to you. Think of a rubber band when you put that in boiling water. It becomes really, really pliable. Okay, so if I warm up this adhesive, and the fibers that are on inside the adhesive will just kind of go with it, as long as you don't pull it. So you give the adhesive time to warm up, and then the fibers will go with it. So you actually see I give it room. Okay, then it becomes this Pac-Man motion. I call it. It's just, you just tack it very carefully in place. If you get any tiny little folds, don't worry about that. That will all be gone when we heat set it, which is the final heat setting process. So now I have all my pieces together, and you notice there was here a little gap, where same here. The ribbon will all cover that, so don't freak out over the fact that you maybe have a little edge there that is not totally covered. I just try to find my small scissors here, and you just lay it down. And so your first piece is finished. Now we're going to go over here. And again, we're going to finish off this top. You see this motion that I do is you don't pull it, but give it room. If I would pull it, it would go like this and it would lift. So what I'm basically doing is I'm holding it, give it some room towards me, have a taut in the back. And there we go. Now you see how easy that this is. It really is a process that when you get the hang of it, and the funny thing of it is, I tell usually my students during the workshops is pay attention to your body. The first 3 minutes, your shoulders are probably right next to your ears, and you will get this really tight feeling because it's something that you're doing that you've never done before. And so I always say, okay, time out, take a deep breath, let it go. The more relaxed you are, the easier it is. So let's go on and let's finish the rest of our pieces. So I'm picking it up here again, and again I pick the angle that I need. Now comes an interesting part. People ask me, how do you get these really sharp points? How do you fold that over? And then my response is, you do not fold it over. What we do is we just clip it. And that's the beauty of this particular ribbon. It is a non-fray. As soon as I put the heat back on it, it will seal itself again. So what I did was I cut this angle. Now I need to start here to go the other way. I just lay this down. Go around it. Again, remember, hold it without pulling it. Go down. Now when I come on the ends, you'll notice that I will, and you do have to have really, really sharp scissors, because otherwise you have a hard time cutting these pieces. But as you see, it actually is not difficult at all. It is just a matter of thinking I have fingers that do not cooperate, and when you get the hang of it, you will find out how easy it is. It is actually something you can do within an hour. We do usually these kinds of blocks during a Saturday block of the month, and they do these blocks in basically an hour, hour and a half. So it is not something that is very time consuming, but it just takes a little bit of patience to get these little twisties, and I deliberately chose this pattern because of the twisties, so you can see how to make the sharp corners and the sharp points and have perfect patches where they all match. If you run out of your ribbon, don't put these pieces away if you have small pieces, because you can just go on and it will never look or appear that you had to patch it. So what you do is you clip an angle, you lay this right on the area where, with the butt end against it, where it was not cut, and you just pick it back up, and you will not see where it adheres itself. There you go. So you use literally every millimeter, if you wanted to call it, of your particular ribbon. There is never a waste. In fact, the little clips that you have and that you cut off when you need different angles, I have a little Altoid box where I put them in, and when I have centers to do for like the poinsettia that has little snippets in it, it's not because I have to be stingy about my ribbon, it's just it's already cut for me, and so it makes it a lot easier. Use a pair of tweezers and just lay them down. So let's pretend that I have now finished my whole project here with ribbon, and I have one that is done. And if you noticed here, I created the stamen with just a piece of ribbon and sliced them off on the bottom to make them more tapered. And now comes, to make it permanent, one of the most important things of the whole process. Okay, you use this same pressing sheet again, and that is, it's kind of funny to watch people when I tell them, but you take an iron, okay, and you set it down, and for all I care, you can walk away. You need to leave this on for 45 seconds to make it permanent. Now this is already permanent on, so we don't have to leave this on for 40 seconds right now. But you can see is you just take it in steps, 45 seconds, move it over, 45 seconds, move it over, 45 seconds. Okay, then you leave it sit for just a couple minutes till it is cooled down before we do anything else. And now I tell the students usually in my classes, now we're going to go back to kindergarten. We're going to use our markers, and I, as a joke, I usually tell them, now make sure that you don't fight over the markers. But the markers are fantastic. They were really designed for the paper industry. And they're refillable, they're alcohol-based dye. And so the more I worked with the Copic markers, I realized that it will absorb on fabric, and it just gives us a perfect opportunity to make the ribbon the same color as your fabric is. So what I usually tell people is, instead of having this ribbon and try to fight it, okay, if it is, and I deliberately took fabric again that doesn't match, so you can get over your fear of using the markers, is you basically let the fabric dictate what colors you use. Okay, so we're going to look here and say, okay, well, this is kind of a lighter color. So let's go over the ribbon And even if this comes a little bit in your fabric, that is just fine. And you can kind of say, okay, oh, that looks pretty good. And this is so much fun to do because it is endless, the possibilities. They blend, so I can actually use a darker one and create a darker color. Underneath there, I'm going to use the okay, so as you noticed, the colors are still pretty yellow. So I'm just mixing my colors, and they are wonderful for that. And you can create a whole color that will create highlights, as you see lighter here. And let's make the base of this a little darker. And they don't take any effort. They're the most forgiving marker to work with. It looks good no matter what you do. You really can't blow it. And this, the funny thing of it is that is what are people the most scared of. Then we also have a blender. They come in different sizes. This is a large one. If I put a lot of dark underneath this particular to give it more shadow, now this looks pretty darn intense, if you noticed. Okay. Now remember too, it is wet, because it is an alcohol based. I'm using the blender, and the blender is just a liquid without a dye. Now if I go into that fabric, it will kind of blend it into the fabric, and it looks like it was part of the, meant to be for the fabric. Okay, so now we're going to work on the flower. I'm going to go with the white end. And again, you don't need to make a lot of effort in the sense of taking your time. You can make it as dark and as light as you want. I like to always put some green with the top of my part of the fuchsia, because in nature that's the way it is. And then I use my blender to blend these colors together, and then it becomes like it was always meant to be like that. There you go. So you can actually play with the colors, and all the colors that you do need. You can have more darks when they come from behind. A lot of times you have a shadow, and I'm kind of over exaggerating a little bit, so you can see that you don't have to be afraid of the darkness of the colors, because you can actually create this and blend it away that you hardly even see it. They're totally amazing. They're refillable, and you can see you get a very natural appearance. Okay, so let's pretend that this is here, comes from behind. Again, so we're going to use a little light. And sometimes you can even use the markers itself to do the blending for you. Now I always recommend don't leave your markers out and leaving them open, because they're alcohol based and they will evaporate. So as long as you work with them, that is fine. But as you see, you need to you don't need to be an artist, by the way, to do this at all. You just kind of play with it, and if you think it is too intense, use your blender and just blend it away. And the end result is amazing. You will see that even here, if I put some of that green in here, because the top of the buds have a little bit of green, I use the different colors again to give it multiple and make it look as natural as possible. because I don't want to have them look artificial. Now remember, this particular part of this bud is coming from behind this petal. So you don't want them to be too light. There we go. And the biggest thing is people are their own worst enemy. They are afraid that they can't do it, so they set themselves up for failure. And I tell everybody always, there's nothing to be afraid of. It is very easy. It's most forgiving process you will ever do. If you have the colors too intense, again, you can blend them away. Now the end of if you have this whole thing finished, I like to use personally some of the crystals to finish off the look of the flower. And if you look at the one behind me, all I did was I put on the little stamen. I used a few little stones, and the secret is that you don't put on too many. If you put on too many, it will become looking very artificial and very, yeah, sort of fake and distasteful. So you have to place them strategically just to give it a bling, but without being, to make it look cheap. So we can finish off this here very carefully. So you have see that I even put some pink in the white. And this is a very, very faint color. I probably should have had a little more intense color, but it's okay. And again, we just play with the colors. And you see that, you know, a lot of people say, oh my goodness, this is crazy. This is way too much. Well, as I showed you earlier, when you put the blender on it, it will just look wonderful. And you see how non-precise I am. You don't even have to do that. The more looser you are, the freer you are with this particular process, the more naturally it will look. So we almost finished now with coloring, and you see it was like with a minimal amount of effort. I'm going to put in these fuchsias here on these little petals. I'm going to just pretend and just give it a little bit of a hint of pink. I do think we need to add a little bit more green in here. And green over that pink really gives it a pretty shade. And I just put a slight hint of this pink on the white. And now we're going to do the stamen. And the stamen are coming from underneath these petals. Again, because it comes from behind, we have to create a shadow. And the only way you can do that, this will come forward when this is darker. And I think this is still a little bit too light, so I'm going to use a deeper pink. And you see, this retrieves, this comes forward. I use my blender, and I'm going to blend this really strong color away into the ribbon to the bottom. You can actually work with this and then it winds up totally being gone. So it is an amazing process how this works. Now, when we are all done, of course we would like to add a little bit of detail. And we can go with making little lines if you're inclined to do so. Don't have to do that, but that is an option. And again, that doesn't have to be a whole lot. Just little wiggly lines, just to give it like there's a fold there. That's pretty. Okay, so now we're going to go with the embellishments of the little stones. The stones, they usually come in packages of, I buy them usually in packages of 144. But what I do is I use the stones and I use a pair of tweezers. These particular little heating setting tools have a attachment where you can pick up the stone with that and set it down and hold it down. Although when I put this on the ribbon, the actual piece of metal that is very, very hot is on top of the ribbon and it will melt it. So I'm using a pair of tweezers, lay it down and put it right on top. And I'm holding this down for about 10 seconds for the 10 SS. There are different sizes. And you see, now I have a permanent stone on the end of my stamen. And it gives kind of an illusion of a water stain, or where the light just gets hit, you know, by the sun. It really adds a lot of depth and detail. You can put more than one. You can use lighter colors. You just kind of let your own creativity tell you where you would like it. That is a very personal thing. And there are people that absolutely do not like the embellishments, although I encourage people to do it because it gives a lot of depth. And they come in many, many different colors. So I probably will put a second one here on the bottom, which is a little lighter. Oh. Let's not make shortcuts here, but use the tweezers. $10, and there you see. Now, because I put a lighter one right below it, it kind of toned down the darker one that I had put down there first. Okay, so now we are almost done with our crystals, and like I said, I think we did pretty good. We might be able to do one more here in this corner. And again, don't leave it on too long, because then the adhesive will kind of ooze from underneath there. So 10 seconds is plenty. And now I'm going to do the final touch up on the colors of the ribbon. What happens sometimes is when your stones are slightly darker, I use then the marker to kind of mimic that color around it, just to give it a little bit more subtleness. Okay, there we go. And again, none of this has to be totally precise, because even in nature, every leaf is different. If you say, well, mine doesn't look exactly like yours, well, if I make this one again, it will not look the same. I mean, this is just a matter of, you know, one day we cut tighter than another day, or the next time we trace it slightly different. So actually every project will look slightly different, and that is just fine. Now, as you can see, this is the finished product, and you saw how fast this went. It takes about an hour to create this. with a minimal amount of effort. A lot of these projects, girlfriends do them together. They have a lot of fun. They sometimes do the larger projects within a day, so they go that fast. Now this one does not have a border because this was meant to go inside a block of the quilt. But you can very easily put your borders, outer border, inner border, you can put in there. So this is kind of the end of my explanation on how to use the hot ribbon and the crystals, and especially the Copic markers, because that's people fear the most. I hope this will help you to get over that fear. I always say to people, you know, the more relaxed you are, the more fun you will have. And this is what this is meant to be. This is not going to be a torture chamber. This is to have fun and create something very pretty, and it creates depth. It separates the angles and the different petals or the leaves or whatever, and it gives so much depth that you can't create any other way, and it's a whole lot faster than satin stitch. So thank you for spending time with me today, and hope I will see you and meet you sometime at a show.